Hello, my name is Keris and this is my video for what I did in the group project for making our game Droseras Garden. Now, throughout the video you will see some written work that I did, you'll also see some of the assets I made, and you'll also see a mini design document which me and the designers made. So the very first thing that me and my group did was to come up with some ideas on what the game's going to be about. So to do this, we decided to make a small version of a design document. So as you can see by the screen, it's just some basic ideas of what we would have. So it uses the folklore theme which we originally got given, and we decided to write a couple of ideas down and a basic storyline, but later on you'll see that me and one of my teammates also created the full story in the end. But as you can see, it talks about just the basics on the game with the photographer, and that he goes into a place with dangerous plants which attack. So as you can see now, there's also some bullet points on what we kind of thought the game would turn out being. So the 2D game about a photographer getting photos, where it starts, and also a couple of the mechanics. So we wanted to use light as our main one. Another thing in the document which we decided to add was when we figured out we wanted to make a puzzle game, we decided to note down a couple of the ideas as a group that we could all think of. So one of the biggest ones was the plant recedes in light, but only some of them do, and that you can use certain things around the house to destroy the plants, and that you have to run from certain plants because some can't be destroyed. Now, obviously this was our very first part of the game, was making the idea, so not all of these ended up going in the game, but as you can see all the ideas that me and the other designers came up with for it. Now, another thing which I decided to do was, because our game was a folklore game and it was a horror-based game, I decided to research in particular horror games with a similar theme and also horror games which kind of link to the idea that we were having. So as you can see, the first one was Slenderman, and obviously that's a folklore character. This also set in a forest, but that's the very first bit in the forest, and it's very dark and mysterious, and it's a very simple game and also uses light with Slender. So we thought this idea would be really good to use for ours. The second game which I decided to research was Resident Evil 7. This is just to get an idea of what the house would have, and this one is open world. Even though our game isn't open world and isn't 3D, we thought this was like a good idea because of the different enemies in the game, and it also does use as axes and weapons, so we could look at how they work for the game as well. This one was a very important game as well because it is your traditional horror game, which I also found online, was Teleglitch. Now, this was a 2D game, which is good because our game was 2D, and also we wanted creatures in our game, and we wanted things to attack, and this game is about creatures attacking, and you need to escape it. And it's about an experiment which went wrong, which we kind of had an idea for our storyline to go off, where these plants could have been from something disastrous, but in the end we decided it was just a unlocked forest that no one's ever seen before. Now, the next game which I decided to research was Omori, and this is a psychological game but also a 2D one, and it just shows the simple artwork used which we kind of wanted in our game, where it's a horror game, but it's also kind of psychological. Now, another one of the games that I decided to research was Returnal. This is just because it was a Lovecraftian alien ruins game, and every 10 minutes terror could happen, and it was a fight through different waves of monsters. And obviously we didn't have monsters, we had plants, but the thing is with this game, it was really dark with a lot of shadow work, which we wanted our game to have. Now, the final game which I did decide to research was Amnesia. So, Amnesia is a puzzle-based game, and it is a very open world game. It's very jumpy, there's made-up creatures in it, it's a very dark game, and also to see you use an oil lamp, but obviously in ours we were thinking of a flashlight. But we thought this game was a very good idea on giving us some puzzle ideas, which you'll see later on. Now, the next thing which I did for part of this project was me and another designer made the story. So as you can see on screen right now, we have the story in a certain amount of steps, and it's the full storyline of the game. Now, not all of this is in the gameplay because we decided just to make a demo of the game, but we decided to make a full storyline just so we knew which bits to take and which bits not to take for the demo version of the game. Now, the story was probably one of the most important things to the game as we have a lot of narrative parts to it added. You'll see a bit later on some narrative bits which were added, and there's a lot of spoken words, so we had to get the story as close to the final piece as possible just so we could start recording everything for the game. Now, speaking of recordings, on the next couple of pages, you'll be able to see that we started off by just making some very basic lines of text. This was predominantly by me, and then another designer went over it and added some bits. I'm just going to play a couple of them.
Another filter. Looks like a UV one to me. Bloody hell! Almost lost a leg there. An old rusty axe. Maybe I can get in with this.
So one of my roles as this was to do the full sound. So this was making the script, recording and editing. Now, if you want to look at all of them, because there is over 40 to 50, there's around an hour and a half of raw footage that can be found on the links that we've put in. Now, also, because I was a producer for the game, I had to take a lot of control in the scrum meetings, sorting out any issues in our group, and also kind of making sure everyone's on track. So now, as you can see, this is the Trello board from one of our milestones, and you can see how I've set it out where we write what the programmers need to do, what the artists and the game designers need to do, and then we split it into what needs to be done. The programmers have bugs, and this is just a good way for me to see each week for the scrum meetings which person did what and if they managed to meet their goals, because obviously if someone didn't show up, we could just look on the Trello and see, oh, that person did that, and we asked to put evidence in, just some little, as you can see, just some little pictures of what they've done, just so we could make sure that it was definitely finished so we could move on to the next part of work. Now, on to one of the main parts of what we needed to do. So, about halfway through the project, as you can see, this was the list of some of the things which the artist had to create. And she found that it was quite a lot for her to do. So, during the end of milestone 2 and milestone 3, me and the other designers had to take doing some of the room assets and then making a scene together. Now, finally, as you can see on the screen, this is our title screen. It's just the background design for it. And what happened was, at milestone 3, this was quite far near the end of it. The designers didn't have as much work we had to do because obviously we play tested, things were working well, all things were implemented, and because the artist was still struggling, I decided to take the role of doing the title screen. So I asked for a basic sketch of what she would like for it and some of the colour schemes, and then I put it into Photoshop and edited it. Thank you for listening to my video portfolio for Droseras Garden and everything that I did to create the game. Now, as I said earlier, I have linked the drive where all the extra sounds are and any extra bits and pieces of work which I have not included in. There is also a file specifically saying what I did and what everyone else's did, so you can see it. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it.